As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries. With the DJ scratch, that means it is time for another episode of Burn and Return. How the hell is everybody doing? My name is Matt. Sometimes I go by the Grass Factor Martin. And alongside me, we have Ray Ito and Ryan DeMay. Gentlemen, how the hell are y'all doing tonight?
Well, Matt, I was so out of breath from meeting my new friend there. I passed out a couple of times, but I'm feeling I might get lucky tonight. Who knows, right?
I'm glad you're here and aware and cognizant and no longer unconscious. Ray, how are you?
Well, this is my, I guess, first official day being 50.
Oh, Ray, congratulations!
I didn't know it was your birthday.
The big 50. Shit, me neither, man. Fucking A.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Ray, coming in young.
No, that was yesterday, actually.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
Listen, we have to send a note out to all of our female viewers that Ray has successfully graduated to the GILF category. He is now a grandpa. So,
no grandchildren to my name that I know of. Okay,
but I'm saying just
but then
general terms,
No, I'm in the age of of that category. However, no worries. I'm not going to be one of those where it's like, God dang it, Alma, where's my Geritol? None of that shit for me. Honestly, none of that.
No Geritol.
You're damn right, Ray. You're damn right.
Hell,
I'm glad for you.
We keep ounces of tough actin tenactin laying around, but not a damn bit, not a drop of Geritol, because we know that when things get down and dirty, we can lean in to tough actin tenactin. Speaking of getting down and dirty, gentlemen, let's check out this week's headlines.
Nothing to fear here. This is just the news.
We have some good news coming out of the Kentucky bluegrass production world. And the good news is that, well, they're not going to be going out of business anytime soon, even though we've had some tough years, because they found some additional things that they could do with, well, their residues to be able to, support the bottom line there. A future for regional Kentucky bluegrass seed production looks green again, despite changes 25 years ago that once made it look bleak. That's because of gains in developing new bluegrass seed varieties that can produce yields up to 4 or 5 years. Along with market and food production for livestock and overseas demand for grass straw, said Paul Dashiell, co-owner of Toccoa, Washington-based Seeds, Inc. Today, the Washington Turfgrass Seed Commission estimates that roughly 90 farms grow Kentucky bluegrass seed in the state. Most are irrigated farms in central Washington, and others are dryland farms in eastern Washington. The industry has adapted since field burning ceased in the 90s, when Washington around 2007, except Idaho. It's my goodness, what am I reading? 90s in Washington around 2007 in Idaho, except on tribal lands and under carefully monitored conditions, Dashiell said. Somehow, physiologically, bluegrass knows to put up a big seed crop the next year if it's been burnt. Why? We don't know. Since we quit burning, we've developed some varieties, and it's taken all these years to do that. We found some varieties that will produce. It's a shorter rotation, but up to 3 to 5 years without burning. Turning 72 this year, starting in the industry at 11, Dashiell's seen it all. My dad was among the ones who started the grass seed industry down here in the late 40s, early 50s. And it's continued on. And what they have figured out that they're going to start doing here is figuring out what to do with all the straw that's left over. And then it turns out they found a little bit of a market selling that into livestock. And then, of course, being able to sell it overseas. So the straw, we've had to develop ways to get rid of that. And we've been fairly successful at it at least a few years. The seeds we sell all over the U.S., Canada, and all over Europe. So, again, this is one of those situations where the grass seed industry has been in a tough spot. We'll say that, especially with the drought and everything that's been going on in the Pacific Northwest. And they've had to adapt to figure out ways to remain profitable with all of that going on, especially, with restrictions like you can't burn. And so the rotation of seed production is a little bit different than the way it used to be, just 20 years ago. And so in order to be able to remain profitable, what did they figure out to do? Well, turn their waste stream into something that pads that bottom line. I don't know a whole lot about this. DeMay, I'm sure you do. Is there any other additional insight you can add to this, or we're just kind of flying off the cuff here with it, that, what we see is what we get, and, good for these guys?
For the most part, what you see, what you get. I mean, I think the thing that happened with bluegrass probably, 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe even longer, is a lot of farmers out there just stopped growing it because the stuff that was coming out was, they would either not want to pull away from old reliable, which were less than stellar varieties, right, at this point in the marketplace, but they were prolific seed producers, right? They yielded very, very well, and a lot of the newer ones that have come on the market here as of late, particularly in that 5 to 7 year range, have been the super elites. A lot of what we see, we don't get a ton of seed from them, and so it's good that there's a shift in the marketplace, that people are starting to realize that there is benefit to growing these grasses. The seed production industry out there is really, really interesting, particularly in Oregon. This is talking about Eastern Washington, Spokane area, but all over there, it's a lot of these farms are not just growing turfgrass seed. They're growing a variety of forages, other things. Many of them have multiple crops on the same site. So I think at any point when you get into the pinch that they got into weather-wise the last few years, and certainly they're taking it on the chin, they're trying to find better ways to do this. And a lot of what you've seen in terms of the technology for farming out there has improved mightily in the last 5 to 10 years. And so it's good to see them taking some more steps and being public about it. A lot of times you don't hear a whole lot about the seed production issue. I know Ryan Nord did a good video on it last year that was pretty insightful, and so
yes,
I think it's just another thing.
Yes.
It's just understanding where all this stuff comes from, and people that complain and say, man, I can't believe that seed's $5, $6, but whatever. You got to see what it takes to get it to market. It's nuts. And it's such a small crop, right? It's such a small part of what gets produced, within that state, let alone the country, that just quit your bitching. Like, you can send a letter across the country for 50 cents. The grass seed for, $3-4 a pound ain't that bad. Right, Ray? It's better than $3 or $4 a square foot sod, right? It's got to be better.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Maybe you should just start seeding ryegrass out there and be the Ryan Nor of Hawaii. Just do it and see what happens.
You know
just
what?
Keep pounding ryegrass 5 pounds a week every
that,
week for the whole season.
Yeah. But you know what? I would then use up all the ryegrass, because, like, in my area, ryegrass literally lives about a month, and then the nighttime temperatures and the humidity take it out.
Oh, yeah. Just melts away.
It just melts away. I mean, because ryegrass is frequently a nurse crop seed when somebody is seeding Bermuda for erosion control purposes. So they use like a 50-50 mix of rye and unimproved Bermuda. And the ryegrass comes up first, then the Bermuda comes after, and then in about a month's time, no herbicides involved, the ryegrass is bye-bye. Done.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and it's that ryegrass at that point's got to be juicier than some underfucked wives in Florida watching our shirtless episode that's coming up. So yeah,
we're having a shirtless episode.
We didn't tell you, Ray, but
yes, It's coming, Ray. It's coming. I'll DM you on the private lines of communication, and we'll get this sorted out. It's gonna be a good time. Speaking of good time, in the midst of everything that's going on geopolitically, especially between Taiwan and China and the United States right now, Taiwan had the balls to do what Sri Lanka did not do. If anybody remembers, China sent a bunch of Irwinium tainted organic fertilizer to Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka attempted to deny it. And China shook a big stick at them. And so they went ahead and coughed up, $20-30 million to go ahead and pay for it. Now, what we see here is on the flip side, China has sent a significant amount, 16 shipments of produce weighing nearly 50,000 kgs. And it contained fresh pumpkins, frozen broccoli, black soybeans, and cordyceps, which is interesting, mushrooms. And in addition to the produce there, we also had bowls and bowl covers that came in at 275 kilograms, 134 kilograms. And they were confiscated for failing safety tests. And then the vegetables contained excessive levels of pesticide residue. Yikes. Well, and it turns out it was just not from China that these were rejected and sent off for destruction. That would also be coming from Chile, Vietnam, and from Belgium as well. Excessive levels of pesticide residues. Now, I do not know how Taiwan looks at pesticide residues internally. So do they have, what would be considered acceptable levels of exposure that we see out of the EPA? Or do they have their own enhanced Titan one? They do what?
What they do is they have acceptable levels of residue, because I was watching something on YouTube.
Is it comparable to what we see from the EPA, or are they?
Yes, it is
exceptionally stringent. Okay.
No, they're comparable, and I think what it is that they look at it in terms of, is there anything that's going to be potentially unhealthy or harmful? And this gives me pause too, because I've also seen reports of how things are done in other parts of the world where they're literally spraying up to the day of harvest. And for me, that's kind of that's kind of surprising, because, hey, I mean, I know for myself, growing up with citrus and avocado, for example, stop applying 14 days before harvest. That's it.
It makes me wonder, is the hope there that, during transport that they're going to suffer enough degradation of the pesticide molecule that it's not going to be there by the time it lands? I mean, I'm going for some sort of logic here.
That at all.
No, it's more it's more to do
I didn't even enter that.
With
more is gooder.
How yes, they have like this expectation that the fruits and vegetables look absolutely totally perfect, where I know in my vegetable eating days, I often said I will not get weirded out or, pun intended, bugged out if something should float up in the sink when I'm washing vegetables, because then I know that my cabbage or my broccoli is not treated with the equivalent of Chernobyl. I looked at it that way. I mean, I have a certain tolerance, where I'm not weirded out. Whereas for other people, especially in, I know, the Asian countries, they actually have this expectation of absolute total perfection. Not a mark, not a blemish, nothing, right? But
yeah, I've seen that in Japan. My wife says, that's incredibly important, that all the vegetables and fruits look just immaculate.
However, how do you get there? And if that means that the grower is hosing down the vegetables with, say, chlorpyrifos the day of harvest, then what, Matt?
Your potential for pesticide residues making it upon delivery are going to be incredibly high. And
Yes.
and I guess that's why people made all those millions of dollars with water in a bottle that they called produce spray. It'd be like water and like a drip soap or something. It's unbelievable. I still can't get over that as a viable business product. Was there anything in those vegetable sprays that made it just an amazing product to suffice
No.
the number of sales that they made? I know it was
No,
crazy.
No, because
No.
Matt, in order for something to degrade pesticide residues, that particular wash or product would have to A, be extremely alkaline, B, be a strong oxidizing agent, and C, also have high solvent properties for oil soluble material. So the whole point is that by the time you get to that point, I believe the vegetable wash spray may even be worse than what you're trying to wash off with it.
It's the good news is that I wonder how often this happens in the United States and we never hear about it. That's actually something I'm kind of interested in looking at, is the number of
Quite a
shipments
bit,
that are rejected per year.
Often, Matt, rather often. I mean, the EPA, specifically the FDA and USDA, grab things that are being imported, into the United States, and they stop sale on them because they happen to have excessive residues, and it happens extremely quietly.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it just happens. I mean, they pull a sample from the crate of produce coming in from, say, South America or Asia, and it just gets halted, stopped.
And if anybody ever wonders, again, there's a reason why we have strawberries all year long. There's a reason why we have avocados all year long. There's a reason why we have tomatoes all year long. Look at where your vegetables are coming from. They're being grown all over the world. That's not, and I'm not saying that to say don't eat these things. I'm saying enjoy it. We have a very complex network to be able to get food here, the types of food that we want to eat whenever we want to eat it. And we do have regulatory bodies in place that make sure that what we're consuming is going to be as safe as possible. And what we're seeing there in Taiwan in this particular instance is their regulatory agency making sure what they're consuming is as safe as possible. It's just the timing of it in the midst of everything else makes it newsworthy, in my opinion, because already things are weird, and this could be used politically to say that Taiwan is just rejecting things to reject things, and China could be saying that Taiwan is, be stepping out of line and needs a spanking or whatever the case may be. So that's why I think it's at least important to bring it to your attention. Also important to bring to your attention would be we have a study here, the low temperature mineralization of PFAs. So there was an article that I came across that said PFAs have met their match in a low temperature, easy to solve type of process here. And we have been talking about PFAs in biosolids for quite a while now. And so what we have here is another option we talked about last week through pyrolysis in the treating of sewage sludge with EDTA and citric acid and temperature somewhere around 900 degrees Celsius. We could break some of those fluoride bonds. And here we seem to have found an even easier method. And I'll read this and then explain, well, it may not exactly be apples to apples, but at least it's something trending in the right direction. Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, have been referred to as forever chemicals because of their resistance to most biological and chemical degradation mechanisms. Most current methods use very harsh conditions to decompose these compounds. Trang et al. Found that there is a potential weak spot in carboxylic acid containing PFAs. Decarboxylation in polar non-protic solvents yield a carbanion that rapidly decomposes. See the perspective by Judan and Lundgren. The authors use computational work and experiments to show that this process involves fluoride elimination, hydroxide addition, and carbon-carbon bond scission. The initial decarboxylation step is and the subsequent defluorination and chain shortening steps occur through a series of low barrier steps. The procedure can accommodate peripheral ether carboxylic acids, although sulfonic acids are not currently compatible. So, in effect, and from my interpretation of this, of what I've read, is that some of the PFA is kind of an umbrella statement. You have all these more specific compounds under the PFA umbrella. Some of them are sensitive to the exposure of, in this particular instance, they're using sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is a very caustic, very high pH material that is used as a precursor for all kinds of different things, but mainly it is used to bring up the pH of some sort of solution, right? It's probably the most commonly used buffer in all of chemistry. And if it's not sodium hydroxide, typically it's potassium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is a bit more caustic. And so anyway, the point being is that they could use sodium hydroxide in a bit of heat and begin to set off a series of co-reactions that would break apart PFAS. What's interesting about that is that up to this point, it's been a very complex way to get rid of them, if you're even able to get rid of them. And this provides a much easier means to do so. Now, here are a couple of caveats, and I've got to go through this to develop a bit of a better understanding is, what molar ratio, so what concentration, what amount of sodium hydroxide is required to treat a given volume or a given mass of PFAS contaminated material. So if you need 100 pounds of sodium hydroxide to treat 1 pound of PFAS contaminated biomass, then you're probably running into a bigger threat environmentally than you would be if you were, adopting one of the other methods. The other thing too is that so far this has mainly been done through computational work, and so putting it. Employing this at scale is going to be a completely different, experience altogether. And so, but the good news here is that we have a solid starting point that, in the event, with a little bit more research, and we can identify, what molar ratios are necessary. And get that piece of it figured out and be able to implement it at scale. Well, now all of a sudden we have a very, seemingly cost-effective way and a very repeatable way to eliminate PFAS. So I feel like, and the conclusion here of this, says that there's still a way to go, but it does look like they've at least unpacked a way to begin attacking this. Now the caveat is that there's still quite a way to go. And there's a competing interest here. Northwest University has filed a provisional patent that describes a method to grade PFCAs on behalf of inventors BBT and WRD, but I don't think that matters in this particular instance. I think they're going for their patent because they developed the process, and if it does work in the way that they're citing here, then they 100% deserve all the frickin' credit that they're going to get, because this has a very, very high potential of solving a shit ton of problems that we may encounter. Now, the other piece of this is that if you were to begin treating sewage sludge with sodium hydroxide, you are going to get a completely different compound out of sewage sludge. Biosolids would no longer exist. What you would get would be some sort of quasi dirty soap of sorts, right? So the nitrogen value, you'd probably lose a bit of your phosphorus value as well. So you're going to be looking at a completely different product, and biosolids, as we know, would be going bye-bye. I don't know what else to say about it. You cut out for just a second there, DeMay. DeMay's going to watch. His internet's going to catch up, and he's going to go right in. Darcy, yes, this is one you sent in. Someone else sent it to me too. However, this is the study that showed the actual experiment that was done through computational efforts to be able to do this. Again, whenever you're taking an organic matter and reacting or hydrolyzing it with a hydroxide, you're going to get some sort of saponification reaction that occurs. So The simplest thing to visualize a saponification reaction would be to take sodium hydroxide and react it with a fat, an oil, a lipid. That is the building block of soap. Sodium hydroxide in and of itself is not soap. It is a catalyst of a reaction that creates soap, right? So I don't want this to think that it's simple as, you wash it with soap and a little hot water and it's going to go away. That's not what we're talking about at all here. It's way, 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 way more complex than that. We're having to really dial in appropriate molar ratios in order to get a complete reaction and then a certain amount of heat for a certain amount of time. And we're talking like 80 to 120 degrees Celsius for upwards of 24 hours in order for these PFOAs to begin to fully degrade. And that's where you're getting your fluoride ions being released. And then a lot of those secondary reactions are beginning to take place at that point where you have a final product that's able to be handled. The other thing they're using as well, too, is going to be DMSO. And for those of you that have never heard of DMSO, I don't know how else to describe it other than it is a solvent that has extremely high penetrative characteristics. And what I mean by that is, for instance, you can take DMSO and mix it with something and it'll move right through your skin into your bloodstream. So
absolutely,
again, DMSO, sodium hydroxide mixed with the PFAS, and say we're doing this at scale. We're treating all our wastewater sewage sludge, and with the intent of getting biosolids on the back end. No, biosolids are not going to exist anymore. You're going to get a completely different schmoo as a byproduct of that, and likely one that is not going to be very conducive towards growing healthy grass or plants or whatever the case may be.
Okay, and one more thing about DMSO. DMSO is incredibly difficult to separate from something that has been treated with it because DMSO has a rather high boiling point, and DMSO is also extremely hydrophilic. So it is not something that you can say treat a solid material with DMSO and then expect to be able to easily distill the DMSO off of it. Just a little bit of organic chemistry 101 there. I mean, it's most organic chemists do not use DMSO if they need to then remove that DMSO from their reaction mixture because it is a damned hard thing to get rid of.
And I don't know, this is not my area of expertise, but Ray, are we safe to be applying tons and tons of DMSO to croplands?
It is relatively harmless.
Okay.
However, the question that I have regarding the DMSO is, of course, what you just alluded to in that DMSO has the remarkable ability to make anything chemical that is dissolved in it easily pass through skin. Okay? Think about that real hard now, Matt, because
and in terms of a solvent, DMSO is a rather strong solvent. So there's quite a few things that are soluble in DMSO.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. I mean, I know pharmaceutically,
like hormones.
well, hormones. I'm thinking also like pain relievers, antibiotics.
Sure.
I mean, because but the only other effect that I can think of is supposedly, although this has been not borne out to be true, but at one time, it was suspected that DMSO, upon chronic exposure, caused eye damage in the form of cataracts. However, the opposite is true in that DMSO can be used to deal with certain eye issues like macular degeneration and cataracts. So go figure. But then The actual danger that I think is how that is something where if it is combined with another chemical substance, it is highly likely that that chemical substance goes through your skin almost as if it's been injected.
And another thing that I'm thinking of here is that even from a biosolid perspective, right? So, say you're treating sewage sludge with DMSO and sodium hydroxide, you're getting a new type of shmoo as a back end product of that, right? And with it being a hydrophilic compound, I think in its high boiling point, it would be very difficult to granulate at that point too. You're going to have the surfactant characteristics, and when it comes to agglomeration, you're limited at the amount of surfactant by mass that begins to either aid in granulation or inhibit granulation, and so there's going to be a concentration there that has to be balanced. And then also you have to be very careful with hydrophilic materials because long-term storage, you can run into problems there too because it starts, drawing on atmospheric moisture. Or if you can't dry it off enough to bring down moisture content, say sub 5%, then it may just, you may be cooking it at, we'll say 750 degrees Fahrenheit. You're only able to drive the moisture from 30% down to 12%. And even then, you're not creating a hard enough granule for spreadability or flowability purposes, right? You're going to get a lot of bridging and rat holing that occurs through your spreader. So it's again, I think this is a great first step, and this is going to be something that can at least help us deal with this. But on the flip side, I want everybody to go ahead and get in the back of their mind that in the event this becomes the route of administration for dealing with this, then we're, say bye to biosolids. And, you may want to get out ahead of this by looking for an alternative to biosolids, just because you're going to be shit up a creek if that's something you rely heavy on and then all of a sudden it's gone. So I don't know, but we're not there yet. There's still a lot that has to be vetted here. And then again, put out at scale. What were you going to say?
Does that mean that we're going to be shit out of biosolids?
That means we are going to be shit.
Maybe,
out of biosolids.
maybe, Brian.
I stepped
Maybe.
into that, didn't I? I deserve that.
You stepped into the shit. All right.
All right. So our next one here, 92 lawmakers asked the EPA to reconsider decreased herbicide allowances. So a group of 92 House lawmakers, and these 91 of the 92, I believe, are going to be Republican lawmakers here, are worried about atrazine and the new rates that they are talking about as what's allowed to be seen in the environment, right? And we talked about last week how we saw it move from 15 parts per billion to a proposed 3.4 parts per billion, which would effectively ban the overwhelming majority of the use of atrazine as we know it. So that 2 pound per acre rate is pretty much going to go bye-bye. Here's the thing, why I bring this up is that, they're proposing that a scientific board be put together to take a look at this from all ways that they possibly can. And so they're proposing this because they're, the political answer here is that we're alarmed by the agency's departure from sound science by changing the CELOC and also with mitigation measures in the proposed revisions. I do think that if they are going to vet this, let the trial work speak for itself, right? So if they could put together a neutral team of scientists to investigate this and co-sign, I know, and that's the part that has me scratching my head is who in the hell are you going to get to do this, to perform this work, and develop some sort of neutral approach to it. But surely there's an agricultural school out there that would be able to take this on. But I don't know. I mean, is it going to be members of government that are hand selecting the scientific council that's going to be overseeing this? I don't trust that. And if it is from a school, what school is it going to be from? Is it going to be from Berkeley or Stanford or Yale or Harvard, or is it Is it going to be from Cambridge?
University
Is
of
it gonna be
Georgia?
Penn State? Is it going to be UGA? I don't know. And who's to say that they're not all going to be influenced in some way, form, or fashion? But I do think at least this in a scientific advisory panel to overlook the existing body of evidence and hopefully undergo, which they're not proposing to undergo, new scientific testing. I wish they would. I wish they would, if they're going to allocate budget for that. If they're going to allocate budget for a scientific advisory panel, they should allocate budget for continued research into this, and let them speak for themselves. It's kind of a non-libertarian view for me, which is rare, but there it is.
Okay. Here's my take on this: is that I really want to have an independent, non-biased body come in and determine whether 34 parts per billion or million of atrazine in water is even harmful. Because you see, this sounds to me like a lot of the regulations that I live with in Hawaii, in that their premise is, if it's there, it is already a problem. That's their position, is that if it's there, that is not acceptable. Even though there is no evidence that something may or may not be toxic, because, for example, that's the position that Hawaii took on chlorantraniliprole, by the way. Because it has the potential to be there, we will not have it. I mean, so this is, again, looking at, are we actually mitigating risk, or are we solving a problem that does not need to be solved? Because atrazine has literally had decades of safe and effective use. I mean, if I remember rightly, atrazine has been in use in the United States and in many parts of the world since the 1960s.
So the other part here, though, is that, gentlemen, this is only the first one they're taking a look at, right? Like the whole re-registration process, right? So here's where it gets tough, right? Let's just say chlorothalonil comes up next, right? The behavior and fate in the environment of that molecule might be radically different than what atrazine is. I would actually stand to bet that it is radically different. So could you have the same set of people looking at this stuff? Because at some point, right, you got to see the forest through the trees, and you're going to have people who are either generalists, right, that are looking at this and trying to make a call, or you got to bring in an entirely new set of people for each individual AI, right, and try to wade through all this information, right, and try to figure out what's what and make sense of it.
I did not even think of that, and you're fucking dead nuts right. You're 100% correct, people, because if there's anything we learned from pissing off PhDs, it's asking them to speak on things that they haven't studied with a high level of specificity, right?
Easy.
I'm just saying is that you are 100,000% correct. It's not even a real percent, but I mean, that's legitimately, I never took that into consideration, and 100% that has to be the case.
Well, and I'm just saying, like, to reinvent the wheel each time, how do you set that up? Who sets that up? Like, it's not the game that gets played, it's who makes the rules and picks the teams, right? That's sort of what we're talking about here.
That's where it's become. That is where it's become, because the change became when we have two warring factions: the industry versus the anti-pesticide, anti-technology NGOs. I mean, we got two warring factions, and my question, or what has become the emergent question, am I right, Matt, is whose data do we even trust anymore? Because of all of the confirmation bias present, where with the anti-pesticide, anti-agriculture NGOs, oh yes, they can go and find all manner of incriminating results on, say, atrazine, where they can come up with, say, atrazine has sexual side effects in frogs. I mean, that, to give an example, right?
Yeah, and then you have to take into consideration, like for instance, we see with glyphosate, where all of a sudden it's the argument starts as, glyphosate's going to kill you, and then the argument becomes, well, it's the tallow-based surfactant, in-can surfactant, that's actually going to kill you. And so it's when you can't pin it on something else that's going to fit that storyline, that you can continue to pass the buck on to at least point at the chemical industry and say, you're all bad, you're all fucked up, you're all in it to kill us, kind of sort of thing. And I don't think we're at a point where that is going to stop anytime soon. And my hope is that if government wants to show that it can be competent, that's a big ask.
Oh,
to show competent would be to put forth a scientific advisory panel that is neutral, that is able to produce us some trustworthy results that have a very logical and balanced look at what's safe and what's not. We deserve that data, I feel like, in a very transparent way.
I think so too. And you see, it all comes down to where what I've seen happen in the last 10 years or 15 years is all of these scientists are chosen based on their political belief, not due to their competence. And pesticides are not the only issue where that has happened, and where that has happened literally to the detriment of our world.
Well, and here's my big picture take is, for all the fighting and all the money and effort and time and everything that goes into, that, Ray, to your point, the two factions, right, and them pitting themselves against each other and, influencing people in the middle who are the decision makers. I just wonder what would happen if, to use Matt's philosophy and theory of mind in the libertarian free market type of thing, is let's just set some parameters, of, hey, this level of atrazine is acceptable. 3.4, it's back up to the 15, whatever it is, right? And then on the, the organic side, right, let's set some parameters of what can and can't be done. And let them go out and do that. Like, I just wonder if they spent their time, money, and effort for a period of 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and just focused on that instead of on each other, what type of advances in data, in correlation of data to results that we might have. And maybe the answer is that it's a little column A, a little column B, right? Or that certain areas of the country are more predisposed to being productive organic farming communities rather than a conventional approach, or vice versa. I'm just saying, like, it's all the nuance, right? And instead, we're just going literally like foxhole to foxhole and trying to, just fucking exterminate whoever's right there in your way and keep going. And that's just it's a shitty way. The whole trench warfare thing of being in a defensive posture at all times doesn't win anything, right? And the problem is that nobody really has the firepower, i.e. the data, to back up everything that they say. So listen, let the market solve it. I'm not saying, hey, just let it go for a free-for-all and you spray whatever you want and you do whatever you want, call whatever organic you want. Set some parameters, not every single rule in the book, and let's find out what the fuck works. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And I'd love it, because this actually ties into our next article here, where we move from pesticide over to nutrient management, and the USDA announces new opportunities to improve nutrient management. The United States Department of Agriculture welcomed the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, which will deliver $19.5 billion in new conservation funding to support climate-smart agriculture. $19.5 billion. And specifically, what this is going to be targeting is streamlined nutrient management initiative, a nutrient management economic benefits outreach campaign, and an expanded nutrient management support through technical service providers, streamlining, and pilots. $8.45 billion for EQ, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. $5 billion for the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, $3.25 billion for the Conservation Stewardship Program, and $1.4 billion for the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. And why I think this is substantial, right? Because this is a metric shit ton of money. A shit ton of money. Even in agricultural spending, $20 billion is huge, huge. And considering how much of this is going towards outreach and education is fascinating to me, because that means if done correctly, if the dollars are spent wisely, this should touch every fucking human being in America 7 times at least, with a $19.5 billion marketing plan in effect, right? Now, of course, there's going to be some incentive programs, right? And what the details of that are is not stated in here, and I would love to see what that is, right? Or is this going to be some sort of subsidized precision agricultural equipment, where you get tax breaks if you're upgrading to a certain level of sophistication? Is it going to be, using enhanced efficiency type products? Are you going to get buyback programs on that? I know Canada is in the process of offering some sort of incentive program with that. I don't know exactly what the details of this look like yet. I don't know if they've been made public yet. But what we do know is that it only makes up about $8.45 billion of the budget. And so we have, roughly another 11.5 or $11 billion that's going to be towards these partnership and stewardship programs. And a lot of them are going to be about reaching out. And educational opportunities. So, guys, over the course of the next 4 years, is there anyone in North America as a whole, on the globe, that will not be impacted by this? Oh, here's the other thing too. The bill invests $40 billion into existing USDA programs promoting climate smart agriculture, rural energy efficiency, reliability, forest conservation, and more. $20 billion of that investment will support conservation programs that are oversubscribed, meaning that more producers will have access to conservation assistance that will support healthier land, water, improve the resilience of their operations, support their bottom line, and combat climate change. This is crazy, like big. This is a big effort, right? And but here's the thing: when government starts spending money, how well does it get spent? How efficient is that money placed in programs that are going to be making the right amounts of contribution and differences? Or is this going to be one of those situations, and I hate to even use this as an example, and obviously it's not an apples to apples comparison, but what was our favorite bug in a jug that gave away fucking refrigerators if you signed up with their liquid Organics? Is this going to be a Organics type spending program where you get a refrigerator, you get a pat on the back, and you get a new $100,000 radar system?
Well, I don't know. What? I don't know. Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
My concern though is this money going to be actually used to shut things down? I mean, is this going to be used to say, okay, you grower, we will buy you out to stop you from farming? Because I have to be extremely careful when somebody says the word conservation. I got to be ultra careful, because conservation usually means giving something up. You're not getting, you're not receiving, you are giving up. Okay, I have to be super careful about that because to date, the conservation programs that I have seen have been exactly that, where productive area gets taken out by and the leverage to have that area taken out is either an incentive or a fine or some form of onerous regulation. Just saying,
And
beware
and
because when
I know
when
and
I heard that
we're
word,
seeing it globally right now, right?
yes,
We're
yes,
seeing it. We're seeing it in the EU. We're seeing it in Canada. Is this the groundwork for us to see it here? And like one of the things they stated here in the Nutrient Management Economic Benefits Outreach Campaign is the potential net savings to farmers who adopt a nutrient management plan is estimated to be an average of $30 per acre for cropland. It is estimated that there are 89 million acres of cropland, 28% of total U.S. Cropland, currently exceeding the nitrogen loss threshold. And if all those acres implemented a nutrient management plan, the average net savings would be $2.6 billion. It's one of those things, right? That if they did this, and according to their data that they were able to parse together, they said, well, we're going to save $2.6 billion. We got 89 million acres that are exceeding nitrogen loss threshold. Okay. We implement all this and we're not able to capture that. It turns out the nutrient management plans that we have out there were just not significant enough in order to correct that 28% of total U.S. cropland and say maybe it only affected 28%, right? And so now we still have frickin' 20% of our total U.S. cropland that's exceeding nitrogen loss threshold, and none of the nutrient management plans are working. So what do? Shut them down? And I'm not saying we're going to end up there. I'm not going to say we're end up there. We don't know yet. But again, you could see where this could go the wrong way, right?
Yeah, because this is not only is this a mandate, but what happens when some kind of a government mandate has the full backing of government money behind it? What happens to that mandate?
Well, it's a bit like the CDC where everything gets loosened up in the long run. DeMay, what were you going to say about this before I get us banned off of YouTube forever?
Before I get us banned.
give me a voice of reason here. I've tried to play both sides here.
If we're gonna do that, I'm just gonna take my shirt off. We'll go out in a blaze of glory and hair. An exceedingly large amount of hair.
Don't make me do it.
I'm like the third guy from the left side of that evolution chart. Somewhere between Homo sapien and ape. Anyway, if you look, it's pretty interesting on this program. Like this in the fiscal year 2022. They were scheduled to have $1.469 billion, $1,469 million available for this program. So on the conservation side in particular. So that's up to 3.5. So literally doubled the money available in this program. And so are you buying people's compliance, right? I understand why they're trying to do it and how they're trying to incentivize this and everything like that. But the question I always have with this, Ray, is a couple of things. First off is, do they have the staff in the systems in place to actually implement this, right? On the USDA side, like if you're going to double the amount of applications,
that's a good point.
You have to pull in and rank and figure out, hey, what's what? Well, and that's when all this money starts turning up doing dumb shit and nobody checks it and everything like that, right? So,
or here's the alternate reality is, a lot of this money get diverted to build the rank of the environmental compliance police.
No, I don't know if there's anything in there. I mean, I have to look deeper into the bill to see how that works and how they audit these things, right? Because it's not like they're doing every single one. They're just auditing. They're picking out random ones or whatever. But yeah, because there's a lot in the conservation thing. They talk about increasing gains from cattle per acre, right? So at grazing, you can do rotational grazing things, improving soil health, What that means and how you quantify that goal of whether it's been met or not, who knows? Adding
That's a sketchy
pollinator
word. Yeah.
areas. Yeah. So like I said, I would love to learn more about it, and then I'm understanding here that there's probably going to be a lot of people, because a lot of these applications don't get funded. There's just simply too many of them, and they don't have the money for it. So maybe that'll be the interesting part to see, is a year down the line, how much has application to these programs risen, right? Because people think more money is available, and who's going to track it all? Who's going to make sense that, or make sure it makes sense, and also make sure that whatever these approaches that are put into place actually stay that way? Because I believe you can reapply every year for up to 5 years in a row for the same thing to continue on that path, right? And then after that, you're sort of self-sustaining. So it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens.
Gentlemen, we have gone way too long. Let's check out this week's Joe Knows Turf. Joe
Knows Turf. Hi, I'm
Joe.
I'm gonna give you a bunch of accurate turf facts today because
Joe
knows turf.
All right. So DeMay has pulled. Go ahead.
Pulled an audible.
Go ahead.
I called an audible.
Yeah.
I called an audible. We're not going to watch that one. The one that you thought we were going to watch. We're going to watch a different one. Late breaking news here, off of the Facebooks, and I've got to share this video with you and get your reaction to help these folks out. J Pink, go ahead and run that video.
Oh boy.
Oh, there's no sound. And if you're listening, somebody filmed a window, their neighbor's back lawn is getting fertilized with a push spreader in, I wouldn't even say a real pattern. It's just being pushed around, and we're panning over to look and see what truck's out front, and it is True Green. So now we're panning back. And the guy who's pushing the spreader is doing some stuff, but also in the background is my dude's friend, his co-pilot, who is walking around with a 4-gallon backpack sprayer. It looks like spraying post-emergent herbicide because he's just spot spraying. And So let's talk about this because, listen, Matt, you worked for this company. You worked in high volume lawn care. Is this a situation? And what are the parameters of the regulations that you're given as far as, hey, the weather's bad, but you got a goal to meet? What do you do? What's the mindset and what's the training tell you to do first? Let's start there.
Okay, so let me tell you the dichotomy that exists in under this umbrella is first, you are reminded that the decisions that you make while you're out in the field lie directly on you because you are the certified applicator that's making the applications. Now, the caveat to that is that you also have a management that tells you that if you are not hitting the numbers, then you are not going to be able to get a day off. And whether that means you're working 80 hours a week or 120 hours a week, it does not matter. You're either going to come in with your numbers or you're not going to get time off. You're just going to continue working until you die. And it's not necessarily that aggressive. It's that aggressive minus the until you die part. And I've been told that if you're not hurt, you're not working hard enough. I've been told all kinds of crazy shit. And here is an example that I look at these guys and I know exactly what's going through their head. I was treating a 188,000, maybe a 200,000 square foot property one time in Fayette County, Tennessee, and it was a horrific thunderstorm that was just coming down. It was a Saturday, and it was like 2:00 in the afternoon, and I had like 4 other stops on my route, and I was told I could not come in until I had completed these all these stops. Well, what's interesting about it is that not only were we forecasted for that, I don't know. Does anybody remember when Nashville flooded? When we got so much rain, whatever it is in Nashville, it all flooded.
Hollywood.
Everything
Hollywood
was underwater.
Hollywood was underwater. Hollywood was underwater. I remember that.
Well,
Yeah.
what's interesting is that when that storm was passing through Memphis, I was on this 200,000 square foot property pushing a push spreader on it, and lightning struck maybe 100 feet away from where I was. And it was such a frightening experience that I loaded up my truck and I drove back to the office and I threw my shit down and I said, "Fucking fire me." And then I went home. And I showed up on Monday. It was Opryland.
Pretended like it never happened.
Yeah, I showed up on Monday like it never happened, and then nobody actually did anything about it. Everybody acted like I never had that conversation with anyone, and that I wasn't screaming mad because I was furious. And in fact, I'll never forget. I looked at my service manager at the time, and I pointed in his face, and I was screaming, "How do you fucking sleep at night? How do you fucking sleep at night?" And it was like it never happened. And so, but here's the thing is that until you get to that critical threshold, that breaking point, you don't know that you can get away with that, right? Because when you have reached that point of having that conversation with your manager, you're done. You have checked out mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You're done with that job. You're not going to work there anymore, and you're expected to get off the. Hey, we appreciate effort, or we don't appreciate your effort. You're an asshole. See ya. And so trust me, I was shocked when I showed up to work, and everybody's high fiving each other like, "Damn man, that was a crazy amount of rain." And I'm like, what in the world is going on?
That's actually that's the first chapter in Matt's autobiography. Unemployable, you motherfucker.
Okay, I have a similar one. In that I was treating somebody's lawn. I believe it was, I think it was in 2010. And I literally saw a lightning bolt touch ground about a quarter mile to a half a mile away from me.
Good sign to stop.
And yeah, and the thing is that guess what I had in my hand when I was doing that application?
The Trident.
Of course, yeah. I had the brass and stainless steel Trident. And I said, this application gun is going to become a lightning rod, and I'm going to become a 5'6" crispy critter. I'm out of here. I am out of here. And I'll come back when the weather stabilizes. And needless to say, the day after that initial lightning strike that I saw, that was the next morning. There was a hailstorm and a tornado that came through that part of the island.
Yeah.
Look,
all I'm saying. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to say is there are going to be people that are listening to this right now that probably work for a company that has put them in this situation. You have to remember that when you sign the dotted line as a certified or a licensed applicator, that is your certification, that is your license that is on the line. That's not the company.
Yes.
The company
Yes.
has every out imaginable, and it does not matter what you say, whether you say you were abused in this situation, you were trained in this situation. It does not fucking matter. That comes down on you as an individual. That comes down on you as a person. That comes down on you as an applicator. You will suffer the consequences of making those decisions out there. You've got to either figure out how to get out of that situation or grow the pair of balls required to say, no, 100%, I will not do this ever because it's my ass on the line.
Absolutely, Matt, because do you know why in 2007 I became an independent operator and not an employee, Matt? Do you know why?
Because of shit like that.
Yes, exactly. I mean, down to misuse of and mishandling of products, application of products under questionable conditions. And I told the then manager that was the ringleader of all of this bullshit, I told him, hey, you know what? You do all this shit. Guess who the Department of Ag asks about it? They don't ask you. They ask me. And my defense is not going to be the manager told me to do it. And likewise, when I'm dealing with my individual customers now, I ask them, hey, are you going to bail me out when the Department of Ag comes after my ass? Fuck no. You're not gonna. So when I say no, that's it. Because the deal is that I also tell people, you know what? I will do any illegal thing you want on your lawn, right? I'll do anything illegal that you want. However, when it comes down to it, and when I'm no longer allowed to do this, you then have to make sure that I am set for life. Are you guys ready to do that? And I have yet to find anybody that is willing to take me up on that offer when I put it to them like that.
So there you go. You got chapter 1, fuck no, and Nreyes autobiography, which is entitled Hawaiian Silver Fox. Happy birthday to Ray, by the way, 50 years old. All I'm going to say on this video real quick is just, hey, you don't need to be spraying post-emergent in the rain. There's a lot of things going wrong in this video that could be improved upon. It could be used as an opportunity. We could sit here and trash these guys. I'm sure they're trying their best, and they're probably doing what they were told or what they think that they need to do, right?
Yes.
Out of
DeMay froze up there. These guys are probably people off the street that have not worked there very long, and they're doing what they think they need to do to maintain their employment status. But you have to understand that is a company culture thing that needs to be corrected systemically. And until then, it's going to be I don't know. That gives the industry as a whole a bad name, and it needs to be called out for what it is, and it's bullshit. Gentlemen, let's check out this week's Burns. Number one here, Harrisonburg Organic Fertilizer Business expands to partner with local and out-of-state farmers. 7 years ago, David Bocook started Mountain Gate Organics at just a 3,700 square foot facility as a way to promote the benefits of living soil to grow crops. The worm farm is producing 650 tons a year in just worm casting, which changes the biology of the soil and makes things alive instead of dead. Around 1.3 million earthworms are housed at Mountain Gate, where they sent through a molting screening process to separate them from their worm castings, which are then mixed to create the fertilizer. We pack it full of organic grain, pure organic grain. I know they're getting so outstanding, so it carries a plant from in by itself. Bocook said the company is going to offer a customizable soil products that are designed specifically for crops requested by farmers Mountain Gate partners with both in and out of the state. Blah, blah, blah. We're here to help everybody because we make dead things into life. Let's check out the Mountain Gate Organics product here that we're talking about. The website in and of itself is a real piece of beauty here. But specifically about it is that if we head over to their little shop page, let's take a look here. We have a 25-pound of organic fertilizer here that contains earthworm castings. So we have 0.21% nitrogen, 0.06% phosphate, and we have 0.09% potash. We have a little. Wait, what is it? Is that 13.5% calcium? I'm gonna guess that's 13.5%.
No. It's point. No. Go down. Yeah, 0.021. Yeah, 13. Yeah. You're right. Yep.
Is that 13.5? So that's a lot of calcium that's coming out of this. A fraction of magnesium, a fraction of sulfur, a fraction of boron, a fraction of copper, a fraction of iron, a fraction of manganese, a fraction of sodium, and a fraction of zinc. In effect, what you're getting here is a bag of dirt, and in fact, I would say that this is maybe slightly more nutrient rich than the soil you have in your backyard. If you were to just dig it up and plant something in it, this is going to be slightly more rich than that. And if you want these type of calcium levels out of your soil, which who in their right mind would, go dig up a pound of soil from Texas from the Houston or Dallas area and go spread it on your yard, and you've got effectively the same exact thing. Now, the difference is that they'll sell you this 25-pound bag of it for $20. For $20. You can get 1,000 pounds for $690, or you can get a metric ton for what would that be? Almost $1,400 for a metric ton of this. Yeah. And if you look at some of the other things that they offer here, you got some fish fertilizer that's nice and stinky and expensive. You got some azomite, which is not going to do anything for you as well. That's literally rock dust. We have some pelletized rock phosphate pellets, which is how plant available would you say that pelletized rock phosphate is, Ray? You're gonna get some
relatively
some good action out of that.
Relatively unavailable because does everybody understand what you need to do to rock phosphate in order to make it plant available?
Yeah, a little sulfuric acid there is what's going to be required.
A little bit of sulfuric. Yeah.
So our point here is that this is great. Glad they're expanding. A company that's only producing 650 tons a year is going to have to sell it at prices that do not fucking make sense because there's nothing about that takes into account economy of scale. We're talking about a decent sized lawn care company is going to be consuming 100 tons of fertilizer a year. And there's definitely more than 6 decent sized lawn care companies out there. And by decent size, I'm saying like just on the slightly larger size than average. And if I recall correctly, there's 122,000 average lawn care companies that are out there right now. So, again, this is not economy of scale. This is someone who's pretending like they're doing something different. They're not. This is worm dirt, and good luck if you think this is going to be anything different than what's already been done. There's lots of data out there about worm castings and the lack of performance characteristics you're going to get out of it compared to say, I don't know, NP and K.
Now we're gonna have to watch Dumb and Dumber, J-Pink, on the movie night with Matt because I wanted to drop I got worms, that whole line, but Matt doesn't
actually.
About that.
Matt needs to watch Billy Madison too, because that is apropos for all of the Joe Knows Turf subjects. Because what is that line? I award you no points, and the entire room is now dumber for having listened to that.
That's right.
What is it on the Lost Boys where he says, "Eat the worms, Michael. Eat the worms."
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Going deep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I have a brother just a little bit older than you, DeMay, and so we watched the Lost Boys multiple times in my house.
Oh yeah, my brother.
That was why I got subjected to that.
Mm-hmm.
We've got fish that are dying overseas right now, and the Brandenburg Environment Ministry excessive pesticide values have been detected at a measuring point in the odor. And so they're saying here is that laboratory determines increased pesticide values, and you got a shit ton of fish deaths. But where this one really grinds my gears is that, well, the cause of the fish kill in the Border River hasn't yet been clarified. And then if we go down to the last line here, the mass death of fish in the Border River odor became known on the German side on August 9th. According to the Federal Ministry for Environment, hundreds of different substances in the fish are currently being investigated to investigate the causes. Scientists say a toxic species of algae could be a key factor in the fish kills, but that has not yet been proven. Other substances are currently being investigated. So they're going to come out in the headline here and say that, oh boy, we got pesticides and a shit ton of 150 tons of dead fish. But it could be toxic algae. It could be one of the many different hundreds of substances that are being investigated. And but pesticides sure is easy to point at and blame, right?
Yeah, super easy. And
this is nuts. This pisses me off.
This is crazy because under normal circumstances, did you know that fish have a rather high tolerance for 2,4-D? Did you know that?
Yeah, that's why it's an aquatic herbicide.
Yeah, you can knock out things like water hyacinth with 2,4-D and not hurt the fish. So this is just an example of the news media playing along with the anti-pesticide agenda, where let's blame 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid. Let's blame that. Where unless you make the fish swim in straight 2,4-D ester, I don't think a couple parts per million of 2,4-D is going to hurt them seriously. I mean,
It makes perfect sense to me. This is. I hope shit like this would be tackled by that USDA outreach program, but of course it's not, because as we see, it is disseminated into even European countries, and everybody's looking for the scapegoat, and it's always pesticides. Here's an interesting one. Is 5 synthetic fields used by the LA Unified Schools are out of commission. The district has had a continuing problem with fields not being able to withstand the heat, causing material to end up stuck to the bottom of shoes. In 2016, the district had to replace 6 fields because of defective materials. According to a statement from the LAUSD, crumb rubber infill material previously used is made of recycled materials, which could contain toxic chemicals. These infill materials were removed from all district synthetic turf fields more than 12 years ago. The district moved to TPE and EPDM alternative infill compounds made of virgin rubber, which did not use any form of recycled materials. I thought if it was recycled, it's all good, but I guess not. That's the recycled ones, so let's kill you. However, some of these products contain insufficient chemical stabilizers to withstand temperatures in the Los Angeles region and daily playfield use. This has resulted in shorted lifespans for some fields. However, all synthetic turf fields have to be replaced every 8 to 10 years. DeMay, is this? Am I?
Yeah, I mean,
okay, just making sure. Just making sure.
Yeah, no, this is the kind of stuff that it's always been a moving target, right? So, like, if you ask any of the major turf manufacturers, hey, what is your end goal? What are you trying to do? They will all either blatantly tell you, or they will try to say it without saying it. Somewhere in between is that trying to mimic a natural grass surface, right? And some of them put an absolute shit ton of money and research behind that effort, and they're always trying to improve it. So the rub of this is, like, to push this out and to really research it and do it in different climates in different parts of the country, different construction methods, things like that. You get situations like this where something that goes out that may have worked in one part of the country is not vetted out and working somewhere else, right? So people see a turf field and think, well, it's just it's a turf field, no big deal. But there's a difference in terms of all the components that goes into it. And again, if that stuff is happening, right, the relative safety of the fields that haven't failed yet should be looked at with close scrutiny, because they didn't get like that overnight, right? The ones that have to be replaced right now. And so you're probably in a situation where several of these other fields, in my estimation and experience, are probably in a unsafe or borderline unsafe condition right now. So sounds like there's a little bit more work to do on the R&D side. Got to go back there, and yeah, EPDM and some of the alternative infills can help, but they have their own drawbacks for a variety of different reasons too, notwithstanding the fact of cost. They're much more expensive than just regular old recycled crumb rubber. So you put all that together, and you got a lot of money sitting out there in physical assets, and now we can't use them. And even if there's a warranty replacement or whatever, it's still time, right? That's still saying, hey, kids, guess what? You got to go down the street to to your rival's high school to play your home games this year because the fields get torn up and replaced. Good fucking luck.
Yep.
Speaking of go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
Okay, this is just something that I've seen as well, where a sports team was supposed to have used the stadium here. It was a soccer team, and what happened is there was an issue with the surface, because guess what? most sport surfaces here in Hawaii are almost all sin turf.
Mm.
We don't have very many natural playing surfaces here in Hawaii, actually. We don't.
Mm.
And so this is like something that is not new to me. I've seen this before. I've heard this before. And I just have to ask now. So what are the downsides to having synthetic turf? This would be one of them, right? Breakdown of the surface, necessitating an extremely costly removal and replacement. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, lots
Yeah.
of not look forward to there.
Yeah.
And speaking of decisions that do not make sense, and I'm gonna shit on those fields real quick, and then parlay that into what is going on in France right now, and that is climate activists fill golf holes with cement after water ban exemption. Climate activists in southern France have filled golf course holes with cement to protest against the exemption of golf greens from water bans amid the country's severe drought. Targeted sites for this lose golf, the leisure industry of the most privileged. The exemption of golf greens has sparked controversy as 100 French villages are short of drinking water. Golf officials say greens would die in 3 days without. A golf course without a green is like an ice rink without ice. He added that 15,000 people worked in the golf courses across the country. The recent action targeted courses in the towns of Villejuif and Blagnac. It was claimed by the local branch of the Extinction Rebellion movement. In a petition, the activists said the exemption showed that economic madness takes precedence over ecological reason. While residents cannot water their gardens or wash their cars in the worst-hit municipalities, golf courses have escaped the nationwide restrictions. The water bans are decreed nationally, but enforcement is at the discretion of regional officials. So far, only one area, Isle-et-Vilaine in western France, has diverged, banning the watering of golf courses. Some constraints on the golf course remain. Watering must be carried out at night with no more than 30% of the usual water volume. Some parts of the Loire River have virtually dried up across 2/3 of France. The state of crisis has been declared with rainfall down by some 85%. Hey, when in doubt, cement it out, as I was always taught. This is very, very positive type of environmental response, in my opinion, because if there is one thing that is going to make me change my mind, it is someone filling my aeration plugs with concrete on my golf green. That is
Yep.
definitely going to red pill the shit out of me. I can guarantee that.
Well, I'm gonna be a little bit of a contrarian and point out to these environmental activists that now that you've created this kind of damage, the golf green will require even more water to repair your act of vandalism. So what have they actually accomplished? Just saying.
This idea that golf is the sport of the most privileged is just, man, it gets old. It really, really gets old. And I don't at this point, is there anything that can be done about this, or are we just locked into this narrative for the rest of time?
Probably.
How do you undo it?
Probably.
How do you undo it? There's nothing you can do at this point to take that away.
I think it's people that don't play the game that make that, because that
Yes.
make that argument. And so
you think
I don't
those
know.
environmental people are out there on the weekends stroking golf balls with their son in a fatherly son-like fashion? Like, hey, boy, you really did good with your driver out there. Next week, let's work on your pitch and wedge. Hell no.
And it's not only the sons; it's also the daughters. It is also the daughters as
True.
well.
100%.
Well,
Yeah,
and
so-
how many of
so
those
it-
people? Go ahead.
And because I know that not every single golfing person has a silver spoon stuck up their ass. Not every golfer that I know has that. I mean, a lot of them are just normal, everyday people. They don't even get to play at the most expensive country club. They're playing at the lower end clubs that are open to the public without a membership. I mean, so don't get me started.
You, Matt, you want to know how many courses I played where you could go out there with cutoff jorts, no shirt, and get fucking ass bag drunk by the time you were making the turn? You know how many courses I played like that growing up? A lot.
Mhm.
And that's
what I'm wearing now is what I use to build target golf, as a matter of fact.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
While drinking cases of natural light.
Oh no.
in those
Oh
quantities.
no.
Yeah, cases.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, this is crazy. I do understand that they're in the midst of a major drought there, and some things have to be done. But at the same time, to pretend like golf is a sport of only the wealthy and elite is absolutely asinine. There are millions of people, hundreds of millions of people around the world that appreciate the sport that is golf, and I hope whoever hurt these people, they get vengeance on them and they're able to square things away. Gentlemen, let's check out this week's returns.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la.
I'm back.
So two major acquisitions and or spending plans this week on this week's returns. And the first one is, if anybody's ever heard of Xperi Green, it looks like they have been acquired by a private equity firm called Huron Capital, which is interesting because this whole private equity firm thing is what we saw happen with True Green and maybe even Service Master as well. But I think that was more specific to True Green. And of course, they got all this pretty flowery language in here. Xperi Green is several acquisitions from 2021 to 22. Now has more than 40,000 customers and more than $20 million in total revenue. Joe Cusick will be named co-chairman of the new venture. We'll share that role with David Alexander, the former CEO of True Green and current operating partner with Huron. David Alexander, I remember that name quite well, as a matter of fact. And then it goes on to give a little bit of a background on each of the independent companies here. So what's interesting is this board they have put together here. It's run by lawn care industry veterans, John Moen, President David Irwin, Chief Operating Officer Mike Goodrich, Chief Financial Officer and board member and co-chairman Joe Cusick. Joe Cusick is the one who founded Real Green Systems. And if you do not know what Real Green is, you have your head under an absolute rock. Joe, I'm not going to say what I was going to say because it's kind of interesting there. But so it's interesting that said, what, we're going to Real Green and show exactly what we can do green by demonstrating it with what we can do right here with Xperi Green, right? Just kind of putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and now they've got a $20 million company that they're looking at. So good stuff there. And then my alma mater, and this is who I say really taught me how to do lawn care. I'd say True Green inspired me to want to be in lawn care, and Fairway Lawns taught me how to be a lawn care technician. They have announced the acquisition of Planet Earth Lawn and Pest Control. And a name that I absolutely hold near and dear to my heart. I see that when I read this, that he is the CEO, Kyle DeMilt. And I mean this from the absolute bottom of my heart. If there was one, I would say there was two people at Fairway Lawns that really put life and lawn care into perspective for me. And number one was Stuart Kastler. Number two was Kyle DeMilt. And those people I will always and of course my service manager Robert as well too. I mean, those people I will always hold just near and absolute dear to my heart. And the guys who took over their roles, Corey and Brian, just unbelievable, salt of the earth people. And so I'm proud to see that they are expanding and doing big things, because they are amazing people to work with for the years that I did work with them. I absolutely loved them. So big moves in the lawn care industry of, here's one of the things we talk about is, on the verge of economic issues, on the verge of recession issues. But what is continued to be evident time and time again is that the lawn care industry and the landscape industry can be relatively unscathed by this. And why that is, no one's exactly sure. You could say that, well, people want to protect their own house, their own domicile. And they want their own little piece of paradise where they have stability that they come home to. I know that was one of the things I heard a lot, during the 2008, 2009 financial crisis, that, people just wanted to come home to something that they could enjoy while they're out, doing whatever they have to do to survive the rest of the time. And I think seeing these types of acquisitions that are not small at all are a testament to, big private money not worried about the economy right now, which is favorable, in my opinion, at least in our industry. Anything else you boys want to add?
No, I mean, I think it's indicative of what's happening throughout the industry, where you've got, larger and larger companies that are rolling up smaller companies and trying to get bigger right through that growth. And we all know that if you have good systems in place, have good equipment, and you've got the right staff, lawn care in particular can be a very high cash flowing business. And so I think the goal is to package these all up and try to get them to a point where, this company here at Huron can sell it to a larger PE firm, right? Spin it off, or maybe they just grow and sit on it, and that's what they do. So I think you'll see this continue to heat up. I've talked to several lawn care operators of varying sizes here in the Midwest in the last probably 6 months, and many of them being approached to buy, right, and as part of a roll-up deal. It's not just like, hey, we want to bolt you onto our existing framework and we're already operating. These are companies that are coming from the outside saying, hey, we want to take you from, just like they did here, take you from 6 cities out to a dozen or 25 or something like that. That's how they want to fuel that growth. So interesting stuff. We'll see what happens. Hopefully there's some people that make out well financially out of all this in the industry.
No doubt. Because listen, guys, you want a quick ROI on your business, sell it. I know some guys that needed to get out of New York over the last couple of years. They sold their business and made a lot of money and were able to relocate. And now they get to play the game of holding their hat to their chest for a little bit and then let things roll over. And then they're able to get going again, take the systems and equipment and all the knowledge they have from doing it part one and rolling it into part number 2 and doing it all over again. So I don't know. It's interesting. Gentlemen, let's check out this week's mailbag.
You've got mail.
Okay, I'm going to answer one of these, and then the other one we are going to get to. I do want to at least address it. The first one is we have Greg, who has reached out to us, and he says, I applied a new product to my yard and would like you guys to take a look at it, give me feedback, or maybe feature on the podcast. This product comes from a company called Ag Turf. Their website is agturfusa.com. I just applied their product. Turf 48X application rate is 2 quarts per acre and 1 quart per acre follow-up in 2 weeks, and also another 1 quart per acre in another 2 weeks. I live in Texas, west of Houston. And I'm going to say that when I read this, I feel like this is someone who is asking us to plug this on our podcast. And I may be overstepping my bounds there. So, Greg, if that was not your intent, I apologize. But so I go to look up this product here, and this is what we are told. We have 48X, which is an arsenal of micronutrients value. Arsenal of micronutrients value enhances fertilizer efficiency in all soils. And so when this is all I can find on the product, and I've gone through their social media, and their social media says that 48X contains microbials plus a fertilizer. No, it says all natural microorganisms with an added arsenal of micronutrients, flushes salts from the root zone, enhances fertilizer efficiency in all soils, but no label. And let me tell you right now, the fact that there is no label on this, there's a series of pictures, there's no data, there's no anecdotal data. It's just a trust me, and there's nothing on this that tells you what exactly is in it, at what ratios are in it, at what concentrations are in it, to allow people to make an informed decision in and of themselves with their own brain and their own mind. Instead, we're getting told, just trust us. I call absolute fucking bullshit. Not a fucking chance would I ever use this product. Never would I ever recommend this product. Never would I feature this product on the podcast. And anyone who approached me about using this product and did use the product, I would say, well, good luck. You fucked up. So I'm sorry for being harsh and crass about that. But I will be that way because it's such. We are in a day and age where we no longer have to do this, right? This is such poor execution. This is poor product integrity that at the very least, just show a label. Just show a label. And if you're worried about people copying you, then I don't know what to say. You've got an inferiority complex, or you're afraid that people are going to look at it and realize that there's nothing in it that's going to provide any value. So again, your 48X product here, I'm going to call hot absolute garbage on, and I'll just leave it at that. Boys, what did y'all see about this that I'm overlooking that is going to make it the absolute magic sauce and make me put my foot in my mouth, because I'm ready to at this point?
I'm gonna have to go with you. It's scary that you have a product here that's being sold. I'm wondering how you even got it, because I'm not sure that there's any way to buy this. Is what I'm trying to look up right now, and I don't see this anywhere.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I did, and I'm not going to dox this guy. But if you look at the ending of his email address,
I already was looking at it. I did the same thing you did,
and it's like a not quite built marketing service, fulfillment service, because it's an unfinished website I can see, and so yeah, I think this is their latest greatest venture that they're undergoing is this revolutionary new product that contains. Oh, what does it say on the website here? Because this type of verbiage right here makes me want to run the other direction. Arsenal of micronutrients value. That sentence does not make sense no matter how you spin it. That's not a typo. That is just, that seems like someone who is not a native English speaker wrote that and is trying to convince me that this is something that it's not. And I do not trust it. End of story.
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, this is a mystery product that are of dubious benefit and are, of course, very poorly vetted, because I want to see, for example, on what basis or by what mechanism does this actually improve plant growth? I mean, give me an actual logical mechanism. And until I can see that, and until in my mind it actually does that without having any kind of unintended effects a la organics, count me as a non-believer. That's my take on it. Count me as a non-believer.
Well,
yep.
I just the only thing I wish, guys, I really do, I wish that Ron Henry would come out from behind the Greg moniker, his pen name, and just ask us, in person, what do you thinks about maybe selling that new product. Just ask us, Ron. It's okay. We're not here to bite.
Our second one here is going to be from Andy, and Andy says, "Hi, gentlemen. Enjoy your podcast. I'm just a guy with a small 4,000 square foot yard that likes lawn care. I'm trying to square away what I'm hearing from you all about agriculture and fertilizers with some others with a seemingly opposing view. Strong advocates for all organic farming methods, examples, Gabe Brown and Joe Salatin. I have no real dog in this fight, but I hear the way you talk with such passion from both sides of the fence. My question is have you explored the methods preached by Gabe and Joel? And if so, what problems are you seeing? Keeping in mind they are not some university lab or newspaper journalists, but real farmers on active farms. Thanks for all you guys do." Andy. Andy, I am not familiar with their methods, but if it is organics that we're talking about, I would say that between the three of us, we have all played around in this space in some form or fashion for definitely longer than a year in an attempt to give it a real fair shot. Now, what I'm going to ask is that you give us a little bit of time to do some due diligence on who Gabe Brown and Joel Salatin are, and what methodologies they employ. However, from a top-down organic approach, we have talked about this several times on the show before, where we have taken some of the latest field work and field studies that have been conducted related to yields, yield quality from organic crop production, and shown that it's not all it's all cracked out to be. It looks good on paper, but some of these things we're looking at with like, increased microbial activity, that they're quantifying as a healthier soil, in turn is not translating into anything that is going to help us feed more people, is translating into anything that is going to improve the climate, because what we're seeing from quote unquote healthier soils are higher CO2 respiration rates. And so there's a lot of noise in this space that is not backed up by any sort of evidentiary due diligence. And so we need to do some study on this before we can give you precise answers. And you know what? We'll do that. We will gladly do that. And so stay tuned, Andy. I'm going to leave your note up. And next week, gentlemen, I don't know, maybe we could even feature this for a Joe Knows Turf. I'm just kidding. We can do it for a I don't know, maybe a little extended mailbag here and answer Andy's questions with some legitimacy.
Sounds like fun.
Yes.
It does sound like fun. With that, our episode is over. We are going to go hang out with the patrons. If you don't know who the patrons are the reason that we're able to do not just this, but all the other fun things that we do. And in fact, what we're doing this year is we're going to have our second annual meetup in Louisville, Kentucky, coming up in October. We're almost completely sold out. In fact, we may be sold out by now. I don't know. You'll have to reach out at thegrassfactor.tv to figure out the ins and outs there. But if you're interested in supporting the show and what we do and the knowledge that we share, you can join our private Discord. You can get more one-on-one access with us. You can hang out with us on our private Zoom calls and all the other fun stuff that we do at patreon.com/burn-and-return, because without you, we would not be able to do this. And of course, you know, it's like pretty good to hang out with my own the guarantee. Now, we're going to out to let them choose the title of this week's episode. Catch y'all on Thursday, where we have Matt Gardwell of the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Gardwell. I said Matt Gardwell. Gardwell Lawn Care. Mr. Montgomery, who is a near dear friend of mine, and I'm excited to talk about the growth he's seen in his business and the things that we can offer him to help him continue to succeed. Catch y'all on the flip side.